Ramblings, and I have a special guest here with me today because we're going to be discussing our professional persona. And so I had to have my professional guru that's in my life, Miss Jessica Canty, come and let's talk about our professional persona, what her name is, and how she is different and alike, like ourselves. Okay, so I'm trying to get you closer into this. Okay, boom. Okay, okay, let me come closer. Okay, so did you want to introduce yourself again?
Sure.
Even though I said your name.
Hello, audience. Hello, the random yet riveting ramblings audience. It's lovely to see you all again. I'm Jessica Canty. I am your life and career strategist. I have a passion for helping people go from unfulfilled jobs to their dream careers. So, yet again, another wonderful conversation to talk about the things that you are nervous about discussing, getting those questions answered. So if you're on Instagram, on either one of these accounts, feel free to ask us any questions as our conversation goes along.
Okay, so first I wanted to start with the reason I wanted to have this conversation. Okay, so the reason I wanted to have this conversation is because I noticed that both of us, you and I, have different voices that we put on. So I was looking at your videos and I was thinking, she don't talk like that. She does not talk like that all the time. Sounded like she's smiling with every word and everything, and how you moved your mouth and everything on the videos.
She's really going in.
And then I started thinking, I do the same thing. So I started thinking, when I was making my videos, I had a whole persona too, and I was so much more bubbly. And when I was doing videos for my students in particular, on here, this is my regular talking voice, but it is I have a different personality when I'm working. So I started thinking about what different professional personas I have, and what her name is in different settings and how I could describe her. So I didn't know how to start. If you want to tell me your thoughts on it, or you want me to just start with mine?
Actually, well, I definitely want to hear your thoughts on it, but something you said I want to make sure I don't forget is that there is a duality in who we are. And I just want to start the conversation off by saying that though there is a lot of different personalities you may have in different arenas, none of them are fake, none of them are manufactured.
Right.
And so maybe as we delve into the conversation, we'll talk a bit about that, because when you said you wanted to do this, I thought about code switching. I thought about, who I am when I'm in the office, and then how do I switch when I get in the car on the way home. But neither one of them are fake. So I think that's a beautiful thing, is you have to be dynamic in whatever roles that you are. If you're not able to be flexible and adaptable, it's going to be kind of hard to thrive in any situation you're in.
And that's one of the big points that came up when I was thinking about discussing it was authenticity. That you still that these personas are not a fake version of yourself. It's a more polite version, or perhaps a better version, a stronger version. Maybe when you're at work, you allow certain situations bring out certain aspects of your personality that you don't usually get to show in other circumstances. Or maybe within your professional persona, you're working on some of the things that you need to be working on in your personal life. Like, for instance, in my professional persona is much deals with irritations much more with a sweetness than Jenna does. My irritation shows in my voice, and Jenna, she's quick when she's irritated. She's not very polite. But Mrs. B, who's my professional persona, she's real sweet when somebody is getting on her nerves, because we're dealing with 6 and 7 year olds. So, but okay, so where's my little thing? I had gotten it from the car to show what I use. There it is. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So I'll go into what my professional personas are. Okay. Because I'm a first grade teacher, my professional persona is Mrs. B. My last name's Butler, but I like bees, and the letter B is cool. I like the word bee, and I like bees. So one of my students for Valentine's Day got me this little pin.
Oh, it's adorable.
And
That's so cute.
I wear this pin whenever I have to be Mrs. B.
Okay.
And I use Mrs. B to work on the things that I don't exhibit all the time or get to show in my life. Like Miss B is patient. She is still funny like Jenna is, but she doesn't cuss like Jenna does in her jokes. But she still has the same type of sense of humor. And you can ask Miss B anything just like you can ask Jenna anything. The answer that Miss B is going to give you is going to be just as honest as Jenna will give, but it'll be packaged differently. So, but I do have to have a physical reminder on my body to help me stay in that in that mindset of Mrs. B. So this is why I wear this whenever I put this on after I've gotten dressed. So now I'm Mrs. B, so that I make sure I'm bringing the best version of myself to Mrs. B. But okay, so then I won't monopolize the floor again.
No, you're just here. She's giving so many wonderful I guess nuggets of wisdom when we were talking about sometimes we may need those physical reminders to tell us what space we're operating in. And as you were saying that, I thought about how certain clothes we're going to wear to the office that wouldn't necessarily be worn to a cookout or a barbecue. Certain things that we would wear to a barbecue, hopefully you're not wearing that to the office. And so we do those things to tell us, okay, brain, it's time to switch up to be something different, or we're operating in a different gift or operating in a different space. So our brain cells will do that. And I really think it's interesting that you were talking about how in one persona you solve issues one way, like a frustration, whereas when we switch to another one, it's a little bit more challenging to deal with it in that way. And I think we should give ourselves grace with that, because one of the jobs that I do, one of the places and spaces I share my skills with is I train people. And I'm also a parent of a preteen. So when I come home, I don't feel like training, and it's like, and then I find myself talking to her as if I'm laying out. So this is point A, this is point B, and point C. And so I have to tell myself that I know she doesn't want a teacher. She wants a mom. And so we may have to move into those spaces where we create rituals. So like she puts on the B, to be able to transition from one to the other. But again, I have to go back to saying it's okay to be graceful with yourself, to know that it is okay to be different in different situations. I'm saying that because for years, and even now, if I'm being transparent, I sometimes deal with feeling like I'm being superficial in one situation, and not being authentic in other situations. But the truth is, that's the truth I'm operating in that space. So like she was talking about the voices, she used to poke fun of me and say that, you're doing your Miss Bowie voice. So it's interesting to hear her first grade teacher voice, but it is because we show up differently for our passions. And so I'm passionate about this work, about helping people with their career. So you're going to hear the smile on my face. You're going to see it, and I can ramble. That's why I'm in this space. I can ramble because I'm passionate about that. But I would say there's an indication that if you notice that you're consistently shrinking yourself in spaces, then that's an indicator that there's an issue there that you need to address. Because it's fine to switch, between different arenas. But if you're, again, consistently shrinking yourself, then I would ask yourself why you're doing that.
So I think that it's better. Like, I really love, my favorite animal is the octopus. And I love the octopus because the octopus is a master of camouflage, but it is still an octopus, like at its core, but it can contort its body to look like it's a completely different creature. It can change color. It can move its body in different ways to imitate the way other creatures are. And I get a lot of inspiration from that. But it's important, like you said, to make sure that you are not having to completely transform yourself into somebody else, because then you'll be stretched too thin. You'll be confused about who you actually are. So it's necessary to keep yourself at the core and just think about your persona as maybe just another extension of yourself. That like the reason why I protect my home so much is because I can be the most true form of myself there, but and I'll lend different parts of myself out when I'm in different situations. And I think that it's really important too. You mentioned about what you wear. So I really thought about what am I going to wear as Mrs. B, but I cannot pick an outfit that is totally Mrs. B and not Jenna, because I won't feel comfortable if I'm in that outfit. So this, I got me a teacher sweater. I have
like Mr. Rogers,
a certain sweater, yes. Except for mine, it has like colors on it that are kind of like this, like tribal colors, multicolored and stuff. Okay. And I was like, okay, so this is my Mrs. B sweater, and then I put my little pin on it, and that's that. So that is, I'm still being myself, but I'm a teacher version of myself. But I love that working for the county that I work at, I don't have a dress code, so I can put on jeans if I wanted to. I still have the option to be comfortable in myself, but still act in the way that's appropriate for the arena that I'm in. But you have to also be comfortable, because if you have a job to perform, you can't be worried about what part of yourself you're presenting, because you're going to get tripped up on performing. So,
but it's interesting because I was listening to another podcast today, and they were talking about showing up as your most authentic self. And I think it's unique that we're talking about this as two Black women, because we often have to be chameleons in situations. So if we are in situations where we're in a predominantly Caucasian environment where we're truly the minority, unfortunately, people will look at us as if we're representing our whole race in that space. And so we may feel like we've got that imposter syndrome where we don't feel like we quite belong, or we feel like we have to code switch again, like I was talking about, like when we are the most polished version of ourselves, because we can't let any type of slippage in how we communicate. And how we wear our hair, communication across the board, the way we speak, the way our mannerisms, because a lot of women of color, I'm not going to say all women of color, but we can be very colorful and animated in the way we talk about things, especially when we're passionate about things. And now I'm saying that I'm noticing how much my hands move. But our heads and our bodies and all that gets into what we're doing. So we really have to be comfortable in who we are at our core, because again, imposter syndrome is something that it's a hurdle that we have to get over, where we feel like we don't belong in this space, or our talents really are not like everybody else at this table. Well, you're right. Your talents are not like everybody else at that table. And the interesting thing about showing up of your professional, personal side is that for our male Caucasian counterparts, they don't have to feel completely confident in their resume. They don't have to feel completely, like I've got, if it's 10 skills I need, all I need is 3 skills and I'm going to knock out the park. But we feel like we have to have 15 skills to be comfortable in that space to show up. And even, as I'm saying, code switching, I got how to answer a professional phone call from hearing my mom answer the phone. So I would poke fun of her. I would call her at her office and, hear her saying, this is so. She's like, good morning. And I would mimic that back to her. But the truth was, I was learning that mom at work is different than mom at home. I never thought that she was being inauthentic about that. But definitely it goes without saying that some of our professional versus personal is because of our race. It is because of our gender, and even in some cases it's because of our age. Because if I show that I'm somewhat, I feel like I'm old, young, whatever that is, like
middle age.
Oh well, watch him out.
That's basically what they call
Watch him out. But I do feel like in certain spaces I'm seen as younger, and I get some isms from older women. In some spaces, I feel like I'm the older person and I want to relate to the younger audience I'm working with. And again, that doesn't mean that any one of those things are not authentic to who I am. It means your audience. It means, like you said, you're like that octopus, so you're flexible and adaptable, but never losing who you truly are at your core.
And you have discernment. That's the big thing that I learned is that from listening to from my mom switching her voice and things and taking note of how I change my voice and why I do it. It's discernment, knowing what situations call for which versions of yourself. And for me, what will help me pull out what I need to bring to this situation. For example, when I'm reading stories, I give it everything, like my all. Even when I don't feel like reading a story, I have to put the voice on, because the voice makes me give them what they deserve, even if I don't really feel in the mood to give it. But if I'm putting on my best smile voice, or I'm doing voices while I'm reading, it's helping me to be it's helping me to be the teacher that they need me to be in that moment. Because if I let how, oh man, I didn't like how reading went earlier this morning, or I didn't like how I was late getting through this subject. If I let those things get in the way, then I'm not going to be Mrs. B like I need to. But it was something that you said. It made me think about something, but I can't remember now.
You talking about me being middle aged. But while the thought comes to your mind, the other thing is you have to be really discerning, using discernment about being your true authentic self in what spaces you're in as well. So it's not just a matter of, making sure it's appropriate, but making sure that you're even sharing that energy and who you are at your core. Is that person receptive? Is this space even, appropriate for it? So even like, okay, when we were going back into the world and we were at full capacity in gyms and things like that, who I was in a gym class, I may have been spunky and dancing in a mixed fit class or in the Zumba class, but that wouldn't be appropriate if I'm teaching a class. But the other thing is that I realized, because I feel like I operate in a lot of different realms, but and I think we talked a little bit about this, how a lot of times human beings think that you're fake or phony if you are different people in different situations. Like I was saying, I watch a lot of crime shows because I like human behavior, and they say, well, she led a double life. She was a mom by day and this by night, and it's like, is that a double life?
Not disjointed like that. Like you act a certain way here and a certain way there.
But it's the truth, and I mean, and this is not a knock on the church. I don't even want to think I'm knocking the church in this, but even I do think that like there's a Sister Canty, there's a Jessica Canty, and it's because I think that in certain spaces, like especially a church, not everybody's walking this Christian life the same way. It can become completely judgmental. Or even at work, people have they love to put people in boxes to make them feel more comfortable. Like, I figured you out.
Yeah.
So
from the minute they meet you, they're trying to summarize who you are and all these little bullets. Oh, you're the type of person who, I thought I knew that about you.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's before you open your mouth. It's how you dress. Again, going back to being a black woman, like, it's your complexion. It's the way you wear your hair. So
whether or not you're talking. People will make up a whole persona. They'll make assumptions about you.
That's a whole other podcast.
Not spoken to them. One lady told me after I gave her a ride home from work, she told me at the end of the ride, "Oh, I'm glad that we had this time. I wasn't sure if I liked you before. I thought you were mean because you didn't really talk." And I'm thinking, lady, get out my car. That's what I'm thinking. But people will make judgments about who you are because you're quiet or they're making assumptions based on what you dressed like or how your hair is and things. But I remembered what I was about to say. Okay, so because of my profession, I do feel like I have a responsibility to make sure that I do show certain sides of my personality with the way that I dress, with the way that I respond to certain situations. Especially for next school year, assuming we will be back in the school, in the schoolhouse, the way that I dress will be different than the way that I did this year. And because I got new earrings. So let me explain this. Okay, so I had much during the school year, I had locks. I wasn't always grooming my locks because I would be tired, and I didn't have any earrings. So next year I will be flyer in general. But I also have earrings that highlight aspects of my culture that I am, different parts of my culture that I am proud of, and that spark conversation. And I realized it during one of my sessions with my students. So sometimes I like to wear one earring, and it was by accident. I lost the other earring and I was just wearing one, but it's an earring that's shaped in the shape of Africa. And during one of my sessions with my student asked, "Do you have a one earring?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Because I really like these earrings and they were in the shape of Africa, and you know how much I love Africa. And now look, we're talking about Africa, and where's the oldest book in the world come from?" They're like, Africa. So it is a reference. It's a teaching point. If they see the pics that I have on my earrings, that can be a teaching point that leads to how we just finished reading. What is it? I Love My Hair. This is a book about a little girl, and she's getting her hair done in different hairstyles. And I said, well, this is what I use to take care of my hair, and I love using this with my hair. And so it can lead to teaching points But if I'm thinking about, well, are these earrings appropriate for work, I will lose an opportunity to show them that Miss B wears these earrings, or Miss B uses this to show who she is, or look at what I learned this from Miss B because she had these earrings on today. So I can use certain parts of myself to as a teaching point. But if I'm too afraid to show them, or I'm worried about whether or not it's professional or whether or not it has a place, then I could be missing what my purpose is. Because like you said, like when I'm there with my I know what I have to offer, and what I'm giving my students is a unique experience that only I can provide. So I have to be uniquely myself. Just like when you're at work, you're providing a unique experience with whatever you bring to your team, whatever you bring to your job. So you have a responsibility to make your persona as authentic as possible, because it's a representation of you.
But speaking of responsibility, I do feel like I have the responsibility to say that oftentimes professional raises or promotions is often based upon your personal behavior. And so a lot of times people think it's based on, well, I have this many years of experience, I have this degree, I have, I know this person, I network with that person. But a lot of people miss out on opportunities, have embarrassing moments, miss out on raises, miss out on making powerful connections because of their personal behavior. I did a talk probably back in like March. And I was talking about how manners move mountains. And one of the things that people don't realize is that who you are at the break room, when we actually go back to being in the break room, really dictates who you're going to be in the boardroom. They want to see what kind of conversations you're having. And if you're okay with everyone seeing that personal side of you, if you think that it meshes well with your professional persona, okay. But if not, I would assess, okay, the conversations I'm having in the break room, would I have this in the boardroom? Especially for those who want to be in that corporate space, who want to be on a fast track to promotion, because it's true. That's why, sometimes you'll see people say, oh, excuse me, that you want to go to the company mixer after work, or after 5 dress. Right. It's because they want to see how you're behaving personally outside of that professional environment, and whether or not it fits in with the culture of what they are doing with their whatever project. That's why they're really having company picnics. I mean, besides the fact that they say happy employees stay at jobs, but they really want to see, who are you? Are you giving us an authentic version of who you are? And again, I'm like, what I was going to allude to earlier was that I have, in different spaces, I've been told over and over again that I have this innate ability to see the silver lining in everything, to find the rainbow in everything. And it's something that just comes naturally to me. And I remember I have a coworker who said it, and she kind of gave me a nickname about it. And then I said something that I guess was against the persona.
Oh, okay, that's what I was going to say.
I said something that was against. She was like, and I was like, I said, I got quiet. Then I shrunk myself because I didn't meet the standards that she had set for me. So that's why I was saying, be very careful about when you're shrinking to please others. And it's not a space that you want to be in. Because maybe, I'm all for being in a space and fine-tuning your professional persona, and maybe kind of getting over some of the personal things, because there's going to be some people you don't like at work. It is what it is.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to like people to be professional with them. But if you're finding yourself day in and day out shrinking, at what point do you realize that you're only a fraction of who you once were? And that affects your health and well-being across the board. You were going to say something?
I used to think about... okay, so two things. One, that a lot of people do this, like in the situation that you just described, when you showed that whatever assumptions they were making about you, you were showing that you were showing the opposite of that. Like, they had made some type of assumption of who you were, and you were showing that you were not just that person that fit into that box. Because people don't allow enough time for, like, they don't have an and type of personality where they can see that Jessica is sweet and she's sassy, or
and complex,
and but not she's sweet, but sometimes like they put but in it, like these two things cannot exist at the same time. Well, they'll show you that, I wasn't expecting you to be talkative because I seen you wearing pink all the time and I thought you were prissy. So things like that. So no, I can wear pink and I can be talkative and I can be spicy. Like, the two things can exist at the same time. Yeah. But I had a big issue with thinking only about because again, like I said, I'm a teacher. I thought only about my persona with my students at one point. I did not think about or work on how I interacted with other teachers, because I didn't care about other teachers. I wasn't there for them. So when I was living in Morocco, I was not a good coworker. I was not working well with anybody outside of my classroom because they all got on my nerves, and I hadn't worked on Mrs. B. I did not know how to deal with the cultural differences that were making it difficult for me to do my job. So it was only people inside my classroom, my assistant, that I actually had a relationship with, and one other person. But I worked on that now with where I am now at the school that I'm working at currently. I have a much better relationship with my coworkers, mainly because the vibe is different and because I wasn't concerned about it. Like when I was in Morocco, I really was concerned about the way that I would respond. Like I would talk to Miss Barbara. She was my go-to whenever somebody did something that I knew I was about to go off on them for, and I would check with her and say, Miss Barbara, is this the norm? Is this how things are done here? Because I said I don't have a problem with conflict, Miss Barbara, and I will be confrontational if I need to be. But she had to tell me plenty of times, no, don't. This is not the battle that you want to start and things. So I was good to have somebody there who could check me and help me to form my professional persona, because I was having a hard time with that discernment, knowing when is it appropriate for me to be Jenna and when is it appropriate for me to be Mrs. B with these adults. I didn't know how to navigate that relationship. But that's all I got.
No, but that's, you know what, you hit on something, and I was going to say, so I'm so glad you started about it. It does take support to know how to switch and navigate those things, because sometimes we can shrink ourselves, and if we have a mentor that says, you know, you really should have showed up this way there. Like, you have a voice. Why didn't you say something? Or you might want to put your voice on mute just for a little bit and hear what's being said around you. And so, like, whenever I work with my clients, I always say you need to have 4 people in your corner. You need to have a role model, a mentor, a coach, and a sponsor. And they really can help you navigate. Like, I remember one time I got into a dispute with a colleague at work. She went and told a supervisor something that was not the complete truth. And so the supervisor called me in, and I was so furious. I was in tears. And so when I walked away from the situation, I was about to send this nasty email. You know, it was professional nasty, though. But it's going to let you know I knew what you were doing. And I was going, all the right things. And so that it could never come back to say it was anything threatening or aggressive in the email. But I was going to let her know how I felt about her behavior. And so I went to my mentor and I said to her, look, let me tell you, yada, yada, yada. First of all, honestly, if I'm being transparent, she told me before the situation, be careful with this person. She picked up on the person out, and, again, me being rainbow, or me being the person, oh no, of course, everybody likes everybody.
I'll decide for myself. Maybe she was having a bad day.
She said, no, you need to be careful with this one. And so I was furious. She told me how to handle it. She was like, no, that's not what you want to do. You want to have a private conversation with her. And you want to confront her in a professional way. And then the two of you go back to the supervisor. And this is how you want to handle it. Because I think my personal feelings got hurt in a professional space. And I didn't know how to navigate that. Because I similar to you in my working style, I feel like I'm here to be a professional. And every now and again, my personal will seep in, like, in the way I dress professionally, but I'm going to have on, like you said, I'm going to wear some pink. I've got some flowers and glitter and all that good stuff in my cubicle. There's going to be elements of Jessica that shows up there, but I think that's what really, where the lines to get blurred. So you really want to be careful is when your personal gets hurt in that professional space, because that can ruin who you are professionally.
It can.
If you can't get that in control, if you don't have that discernment, if you don't have that support system, you wonder why people keep getting promoted over you. You wonder why you're training your replacement. It's not because they're discriminating. It's really because of sometimes your mouth is costing you your promotion. Sometimes it's your general attitude that is caused, and people dress it up as saying, I'm just being me. You're being rude, and I'm professional. That's what you're being in that space. So you really want to be careful about that. Like she said, you need a support system in there. You want to have a sounding board before you go. And again, don't make it a gossiping sounding board either.
No. Yes, because it can turn into that where you all are talking about that individual that caused this issue. But it was so helpful for me to have Miss Barbara, because she helped me to to really sharpen, okay, what is my job as a teacher? So I dealt with a lot of things that I felt like I had to advocate for my students for. And at one point, it was like at least 2 different issues. The first issue, I thought, oh, so you all must not know what power I have as a teacher. I could let every parent know what you're doing here, and I could get all the parents behind me, and we can rally, and you can change it that way with some discourse. But I mean, with some not discourse. That's what this discussion. You know what I'm saying? We can get rowdy. But because I talked to Miss Barbara first, she told me not to do it that way, and then when the second issue came around, I handled it much more professionally, and I was able to pinpoint what the issue was. Like I was dealing with people. I told you how they kept kissing my students. Parents, other people's parents would come in and kiss students, and other teachers were kissing my students because I had the 3 and 4-year-olds. And culturally, it was acceptable to give people kisses, and they were having kids give them kisses after they told them no. So I had to realize instead, and I had really almost lost my cool on this one teacher, but I realized that it was a cultural issue that I had to educate the staff on how to interact with my students. So I had Miss B was the advocate who sent out a nice professional email letting them know, and then at the end Jenna kind of slipped in and let them know also that if you cannot respect my students, you will not be allowed into my classroom. But it was a real issue where I had to figure out who should deal with this situation, Jenna or Miss B, and how can I combine the two, because I have to advocate for my students as a teacher.
But I like that you're putting names to it too, because then you can really see who is showing up in that space. You know, like she said Jenna, Miss B, and I know where I am according to what people are calling me. So yes. Like I know, okay, if I'm at church, it's Sister Kenty. If I'm at work, it's Jessica. My father has a nickname for me. I'm not going to say it on these platforms, but I know, okay, that's my dad talking to me. If he calls me that nickname, or if I hear my daughter say mom, and that helps me to code switch in my brain somewhat, to say, okay, I need to shift into this space. But again, that mentor really helps you to determine what cultural norms are happening in that space and how to respond to it. Because you know, kissing the babies may be a cultural norm, which probably is going to change in light of, what's happening.
I hope now it's changed.
And the globe around us. But even when I was talking about, being in church, there's some cultural norms that, like, it used to be in church we would hug somebody and tell them that you love them. That could be really startling to somebody who's experienced trauma around touch. So again, you still don't want to shrink so much to the point where you are your boundaries have been shattered and you're not able to be the best either professionally or personally. But again, if that's something that you're noticing consistently, it might be time to change professions, or it might be time to change some of those personal relationships.
Yes, and it's okay too. Like again, this is me being a teacher. For any teachers, if you're listening to this, that it's okay to be yourself. You have to, and it's okay to be quirky. Like I forget so many things. Every single day, I forgot to write the date on the board, and my students would tell me, Miss V, you forgot it again. So I made a job for the reminder in the classroom has to remind me of the things that I would forget, and I started having to put pins in my hair because I would set a pin down and forget it. So that became my thing. Miss V has pins all in her hair, but it's okay to be yourself when being yourself is appropriate, of course, but when it shows people, when it gives other people permission to be themselves too.
Absolutely.
And especially at work, because we oftentimes don't leave enough room for people to be people, that we don't accept that, oh, she misspoke that one day, or she's having a funky day, maybe she's a bit more irritable. Just addressing people at a personal level, not taking things so personally, not getting caught up in what a title can do to your professional persona. Like, don't turn into a butthole because you have a title. But it is, it's important to think about, and I said give it a name because, like, when you mentioned aerobics class and things, when I used to teach Zumba, my persona was Bullet.
Okay.
And Bullet she was all over the place, mad energy, and I chose that name to draw strength from it. And I encouraged the people that were in the class that you choose your persona and you be her today. If she's sassy, let me see that sass that she's gonna bring. If she doesn't give up, let me see your tenacity when you get tired. So I love externalizing. It's a counseling technique that I learned. If you don't abuse it, it can be really helpful to help you look at yourself objectively and look at situations objectively.
And I really think you said, like you said, if it's done in a healthy fashion, and sometimes it can really help you to build your professional persona. It can help you to build your personal persona. So like one of those things I said you need to have on your board is a role model. So maybe you need to walk in how you think that role model will handle that situation. So if it's in a professional situation, if I'm in a boardroom, my mentor, I would literally watch her as she walked in the room. She always walked like she had a crown on her head. And I noticed that the energy shifted when she walked in the room. So it's today when I show up for this meeting, today when I teach this class for the first time and I'm nervous, I'm going to pretend I'm her. I'm going to call myself, that's who I am in this space. And I was able to begin to pick up on what are those nuances about her personality that I want to incorporate in my professional personality. And this is now you got to be very careful, like you said. It's not something that we use in an unhealthy fashion,
right,
because
you don't want
it's you. It is you, but what I took was the behavior or what it meant behind it. It meant confidence. It didn't mean I was gonna go out and buy the exact outfit she wore, cut my hair the way she wore it, or try to make my skin look the way her skin looked. No, it was just the confidence that she showed up in that space with. And I consistently, depending on where I am, I think, okay, I'm thinking about this. This how my mentor would handle this. So I'll switch into that professional persona of how she would handle it, because she did something with grace that I didn't know how to do at that level of my professionalism.
Yeah, and then so that's very helpful too, because I have two mentors that they don't. One of them knows she's my mentor. The other, I let her know all the time that I just go in her classroom and just steal ideas from it. But it definitely is helpful to have a mentor, whether it's someone that you've told them and they actually mentor you, or if it's just someone that it's an aspirational type of relationship. But it was really helpful. Okay, this is what I wanted to say because I'm getting off track. So for next school year and this school year, I realized that Jenna worked on being confident, right, at the beginning of the school year. So because I knew that in previous jobs, when I was in Morocco, I was very nervous about how I was going to perform as Mrs. B. When I was there, they didn't call me Mrs. B, but so I was anxious. Miss B was anxious then because Jenna was still in a new place and she wasn't that confident. So now this school year that just passed, because Jenna was more self-confident, Miss B was not as nervous in front of her classroom. So the different things that you're working on in your personal life, you have to make it targeted so that it does improve all aspects of you. Wherever your body is, you have to work on how your mind will operate in that situation. So I had to work on not being doubtful at what I was capable of, so that this school year I didn't go in feeling nervous about what I was doing. I did feel nervous about, whether a lesson is going to turn out the way you wanted to, but in general, it made a huge difference to work on certain things as Jenna, and then it naturally carried over to the classroom.
But I think you did a great job of summarizing what imposter syndrome is being doubtful of how you're skilled. Because you were skilled, you got the job. You interviewed, you did all the process, you got the job. You know what you're doing. And so that's that imposter syndrome kind of creeping up. But like you were saying, if I can work on it personally, I'll believe it professionally.
Yeah. And then making your professional environment a place where it is okay for you to be yourself. Like, for example, again, coming from the classroom, with it being an environment that I had to make sure that I was the best Mrs. B. So I had to set up certain things in place that made it so that I wasn't nervous about time. I had to have a timer and I had to have a timekeeper, because I knew that Jenna gets anxious if there is a time limit, and it makes Miss B frantic when she's in the classroom and forgetting what we supposed to be doing next and everything. So Miss B and Jenna came up together with the idea that we need
had
to
a meeting of the minds.
Yes, we need to have a timer. So I think that it's something that will continue to be tweaked and will change as I grow as a person, as I learn more about myself, what I bring to the table professionally will be enhanced. And I think that it's fun also just to like, I love playing dress up and playing house and acting like I'm somebody else. And it's powerful too, because it shows you how you can rise to any occasion. And I've always, although it is a real sickness, I do think that it shows power of the mind when people can dissociative identity disorder. It is not.
Can you study human behavior?
But it does show the being able to externalize and to be able to cut it off in certain situations. Not DID, of course. It's not glorified, but
yeah, just to say that I can be empowered in this situation if I put on these characteristics more so than a completely different personality.
Yes.
Those characteristics.
It shouldn't be completely different, but it should be certain parts of you highlighted. Well, that's all that I had. I wanted to chat about it, and I'm glad that went. This is like the longest one I've ever done.
I was looking at the time. I was like, no way.
It's like 40 minutes. We've really been rambling. Okay. And look, nobody joined my live. How many people joined yours?
Thank you for joining. Appreciate your presence, and we definitely will post this because we want you to be able to thrive in both of your professional and personal life.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so I'm going to let you all go. Bye-bye.